Hello, folks. Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. My name's Mark, and I'm here with
Brent.
Brent.
There you go.
Okay, a little bit of suspense for you at the beginning of the episode. And
It's a special episode, and you brought on your co-host, Brent.
that's right. Yeah, they're all, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but they're all special episodes, and they're all special guests.
This one's particularly special because we recorded it, and then we found out there was no audio. So we're recording it again.
Yeah, we love doing that. We love it.
We're getting good at it.
So this should be twice as good, right?
Oh, man. No pressure.
Okay, so we've been on a bit of a, economics and Bitcoin tangent for a while, but we also do real estate, and so we'll get back to our roots a little bit on this one.
Trying to figure out if real estate is the tangent or if the Bitcoin is the tangent.
Exactly.
Depends who you talk to, I guess.
Yeah. But no, we want to talk about accessory dwelling units today, ADUs, known by many other names as well. But Brent, you recently completed an ADU, and it's up for rent. Is that right?
Rent, yeah.
Is it rented?
Not rented. We're waiting on a couple applications to come in. So that will be kind of the final numbers. We can put together some, financial data on it.
Yep.
But yeah, no, we completed the construction portion and landscaping, passed all our inspections. So now the next step is just get tenants, and we step into the property management kind of role.
Yeah.
Which you're very familiar with. So
Indeed.
yeah.
Indeed. Okay, so let's talk about ADUs. So this is, it's becoming a more important thing, right? As property values keep rising, interest rates notwithstanding.
We're all waiting there, Mark. We're all waiting for them to come back down. I don't know.
Turning into Elmer Fudd. We're waiting, but they're not. But property values are still prices are still increasing because guess what? Inflation is still around.
Yeah.
And
supply, housing supply, new housing supply is limited.
Severely limited and only going to get worse in the next few years. So even more critical to be able to intensify what you got.
You know that with confidence? Is that like because we're, lack of trades?
Not necessarily lack of trades, but lack of housing starts, right? That data is available.
Yeah.
And housing starts have just fallen off a cliff. They weren't great, and they're even worse now, right?
Yeah, I think about some of the developers that we're working with and talking to. There's a lot of projects on hold or projects that couldn't get sales.
Yeah.
Just the market's kind of slow. They need to hit a certain number, and just the project's not viable if they don't hit a certain target, right? And they're kind of postponing their permits and their construction until they can get favorable financing and the market changes a little bit. So
yeah.
That affects the amount of housing out there. So,
well, because we still the population's still growing. We still have immigration. They're making some measures to cut back a little bit on immigration, but it hasn't stopped. It's like inflation, right? It's dropping.
Yeah.
But unless it goes below zero, it's not. Prices aren't going down.
Yeah.
They're still going up, and so immigration is still at record numbers. So we got to put these people somewhere, and
where are we going to put them?
Housing is not happening.
So our very creative government came up with a plan.
Oh yeah, they're going to build,
and they called it the More Homes Built Faster Act, which is a very good name.
Yeah, the More Better Homes Act.
Yeah, we need to build them faster. We'll put that up.
So all these lofty goals, right?
I love how they call it an act too. Like they're actually going to do something.
Yeah,
we're going to act on this.
Should call it a wish instead of an
More
act.
homes built faster. Hypothesis. All right.
The new home starts have again. They've dropped significantly, right? Condos, there's a few still getting built.
Yeah. A lot of that construction
starting.
has pivoted towards new purpose-built
rental, yeah.
Right? Because, there's the CMHC financing program that offers for purpose-built rentals really, really attractive financing terms. So builders who used to be building condos that are going to be individually sold off, they're pivoting their strategy towards purpose-built rentals because they can get better financing, which hasn't happened for a while, right? Like we haven't had people just building apartment buildings for a long time.
No, not, I think since like the 70s or something, right?
Yeah, a lot of the buildings that are purpose-built apartment buildings are really old stock.
Yeah. They had an interesting thing in Niagara Falls with Marineland, right? Because of
All the protesters?
Yeah, so they kind of pivoted, and it turns out that dolphins are actually quite good at construction.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're going to see an influx of purpose-built rentals in the market in Niagara Falls.
That's such a stretch there.
A dolphin on a ladder, that's a stretch.
There you go. Oh, man.
Oh, actually, so coincidentally, not a joke, we've got a pre-construction condo in Niagara Falls, and I'm just like, what's going on? If I'm down there every once in a while, I'll go by, and there's a big hole in the ground, but the lot is listed for sale. So I'm like,
really?
I don't think this thing's going to get built.
And you own a piece of one of the units that's going to be built.
Well, yeah, we've got the money in for the unit, right? The deposit money. So I don't think that's going to be happening.
So, a lot of uncertainty in the development scene. People are kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting. But
and single family units, like, forget about it. Nobody's building those other than luxury homes. So, anyways, let's get back to the
ADUs.
Point, Brent. Your jokes about marine mammals. So accessory dwelling units, you just had one built. So, like, let's just talk a little bit about ADUs and, like, the history of them in Hamilton. You give us a brief historical overview.
Yeah, I
Professor?
guess kind of really kicked off with, in 2022, the Ontario government passed the More Homes Built Faster Act, which we make fun of, but they actually kind of did some good things here to generate more supply, right? I kind of admit that. So there were some changes to development charges. They're kind of trying to incentivize like the creation of affordable housing, right? So when you build a new housing unit, like build a new home, you have development charges with the city. That's a barrier, right? It's a cost, and that cost for the developer will get passed on to the end user, either the buyer or the tenant. So minimizing that or changing that structure will incentivize new home creation faster. And then another one is third-party appeals. So that really also, like that act in 2022 also focused on minimizing third parties being able to appeal decisions that were made on zoning changes, right? So if somebody changes or like wants to build something that you don't like, right, as a neighbor or homeowner or something like that, the idea, I guess, is that, all these projects that could be built are just sitting in limbo because, they're being appealed and they're talked about for years, and nobody actually makes a final decision. So if you want to have more homes and you want to build them faster, then minimize the third-party appeals, right? Because it really slows the process down.
Well, that's really like, I don't know. You think that was the biggest hurdle to overcome for people doing intensification anyways, right? Because this is primarily the issues would be in existing neighborhoods. So you've got the
we just
NIMBYs,
quickly
not in my
define
backyard.
intensification for people. So like if you never kind of heard that word in real estate, well, yeah, you can build housing units in different ways. You can build them outside of the city boundary, where you're just developing greenfield, like you're developing a farmer's field into houses. And, some people have a problem with that because you're taking over land that was a field.
Yep.
But you're also not really interrupting existing homeowners in their space, right? So you're not really affecting their property values that much. And, and then the new subdivision that's built, you're going to sell those lots off. So like those people aren't going to have any qualms with their neighbor being right beside them because they bought that house for that reason, right?
Yeah.
But intensification, when we talk about that, is within the city boundary, we have a limited amount of land. There's existing dwellings, there's existing housing supply. How can we further intensify? How can we add more housing units inside of that existing space? That becomes a bit of a challenge, right?
Yeah.
For like zoning policies, and then also the construction and all the existing utilities and services that are under the ground and the capacity there. So
Yeah, but I mean, on the construction side, like you can figure that
Yeah,
out. You like
The more money you spend,
yeah, you spend some more money, and there's a way around
there's
it.
there's a way. And
But there's no way around that neighbor who's like, I really don't, and they make up all kinds of reasons,
Yeah.
right, for why like this shouldn't happen.
yeah,
But really, it's like they don't like it. They don't
Yeah.
want it in their backyard. They don't want to be disturbed, and that's where the phrase "not in my backyard" NIMBY comes
Yeah.
from, because they're like, oh no, we support this in general, but not here. You couldn't possibly do it here because there's this, that, and that.
yeah.
And
I think there's a new Hamilton-based housing initiative that's around building more intensified housing, like backyard suites, laneway suites. It's called IMBY, so like in my backyard.
Oh,
and they're kind
okay.
of taking that and turning it on its head
Yeah.
and saying, well, actually, there's a whole movement of people who say, build them in my backyard.
these are these the affordable?
Yeah, so it's focused on like preventing homelessness.
Yeah.
And so it's a great initiative, and I think I think it's going to be really challenging to build affordable housing, but it's also super important to kind of change the narrative around not in my backyard to, this is actually a good thing, could house people and get people off the streets. So yes, build it in my backyard.
Yeah.
Thing, right? So
Well, and that's the problem too, right? Is development charges.
yeah,
We're not near as bad as Toronto is, but Toronto, I can't remember what the number is now, but if you want to build a unit, it's a ridiculous, or it was anyways, a
Yeah.
ridiculous amount of money of development charges, right? That has doubled in the past few years.
yeah. So if we're looking at the history of this, like the development charges and these appeals, some of the other things, that they're all barriers to construction, that you could build something if you wanted to, but you would have to have a really strong will and a lot of money and a lot of patience and time, right? And have a really good case, like a planning case, and say, look, I want to build this, and this complies with the official plan, and this is how I'm going to do it. So yeah, things got built, but not very fast and not very many.
Yeah.
And so this Ontario policy change, like in 2022, has really kind of basically been a fundamental change in the way that we can build housing now, and it's opened a lot of doors. You still have to kind of know what you're doing, but at the same time, like now it's very achievable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because of
which is the
removing-
point, right?
Yeah, we're removing a lot of these barriers.
Yeah. So another big one was the as of right zoning. So they basically made it, every municipality is going to have to say you can build 3 units per lot as of right.
Yeah.
So that means no neighbor can contest whether or not you're allowed to build 3 units. It's just you still have to meet like setback criteria and egress and all the different building code regulations and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, it's got to
But-
be safe.
Yeah, it's got to be safe and proper, but the neighbor can't say no, you can't build 3 units. It's I can build 3 units as long as they comply. So yeah, that's a big change, right?
Yeah.
Especially for neighborhoods where you think it's just a bunch of single family homes. Now it could be 3, and in some cases, like in Hamilton, you can do 4. So
Yeah. Yeah, which is crazy.
yeah,
And I saw something, I should have saved it, but I didn't. But I saw some numbers the other day, because one of the arguments against intensification is that we just don't have the infrastructure to handle the influx of people.
yeah,
And I was looking at some of the numbers of like people per whatever square kilometer or
yeah.
something from like the 50s, and this was in Toronto, in different neighborhoods compared to now, and it was actually higher
in the
back
50s.
then. Yeah. Well, because if you think about it, yeah, there were single family homes being built, but it wasn't 2 people
Yeah, it was
living in
like
that home. This
10
was a
people.
family.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah, maybe not 10, but in the pioneer days.
yeah,
But there's actually higher population density in these neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Well, because even multi-generational living and stuff,
Yeah.
right? So, like, yeah, that's not. It's not an argument. We have much lower density
I
now.
think maybe the government's target is 1 house per person. Until
Well,
we get there, I don't know. We're gonna have to.
Yeah, I mean that number, per living unit, that number has varied, but it's been between 2.1 and 2.9 people, which you go back, it was way, way higher
Yeah.
back then. So that that argument against intensification, I think, is kind of moot now. But anyways, let's get back to it. So little bit of history about ADUs. Why would if you're a homeowner or an investor, like why do an ADU? Is it worth it?
Oh,
would you
that's
say?
a loaded question there, Mark. Is it worth it? Depends what your value, right, and what you're looking for. So that's kind of the answer there. Is it depends, but in general, you're looking to boost your income, right, or generate income from unused land or unused structures on your lot.
Yep.
So if you're already a homeowner or an investor who has a property that has an adequate space or a building on your lot that is currently not generating income, so it's a great way to construct a dwelling that will generate income through the rent. It's also a way for homeowners or investors to boost their property value, right? So you're constructing a building that actually can have people renting from it is going to impact your property value in a great way. It's a little bit premature still on, sales. Like not too many properties have sold with detached ADUs, and lenders and financing folks haven't really, like appraisers, right, haven't really grappled with, how much does this add to the value of a property if I build a detached accessory dwelling unit? So it's a little bit early to get that sense, but it does definitely boost your value, boost the value of your property, which I think, to your point about NIMBYs, like not building these in my backyard, a big thing is I don't want my property value to go down.
Right.
But I guess the argument on the other side is, well, if you construct a nice, detached dwelling unit in your backyard, actually could improve the property value in the ones surrounding you, right? So a little bit of a counter argument there, but
because presumably if there's enough room to build an ADU in my backyard and you're my neighbor, there's also room in yours. So that boosts your property value, or it should anyways, because it's almost like proof of concept. Like, he's got one there. So this whole neighborhood, these lots are the same size. This is a potential now.
Yeah.
You can do it, right? So, but what you said about the values going up, like, it's really, I guess that's really hard to tell right now, because appraisers work off, on residential side anyways, they work off comps, right?
Yeah.
Comparables.
Yeah. What has sold in the area that's similar to you, what you're looking at, and maybe what features or benefits do you have over and above, and let's come to a number. Yeah. But that's limiting, right? Because if look at the guy down the road, he doesn't have an ADU, and you know what I mean? You can't, if you don't have an ADU and you do, then, how is that comparable? It's not. So, but the other, I guess, appraisal approach is the income approach, right? Where the appraiser actually looks at how much income does this generate? Because to be honest, you're building this for rental potential, and you're, likely going to have 2 or 3 or 4 dwelling units, so income sources on your property. So the appraiser could look at it as how much does this generate in income, and therefore, as an investment, how much return could this generate? Well, what's the value? And they come to a value that way. And they typically don't do that for anything under 5 units. But maybe we need to get together and convince the appraisers to look at this differently. I'm starting a petition. Who wants to do it?
Well, because again, the idea with, if you're an investor buying real estate, you want to ideally you want to get your money back out, right? If you build a unit, and I mean, this has been pretty common, I'd say in the last 10 years anyways, to do duplexes. Right? Just all around the GTA, the Greater Hamilton area as well, right? I mean, basement apartments have always existed in urban centers. Mostly they were not legal, they're unregulated, and some were nice.
Dark, dingy.
Most were not. Right?
You got some bad experiences.
Well, I've seen a lot of,
One time you had a fire in your unit and you had to squeeze out this tiny little window.
That's right. So but that has changed because investors have have seen the potential, and I guess probably with appraisals as well, it's worked out that the investors realize, look, I can spend $100,000 or $200,000 to put in a basement apartment, like a nice one, a nice, safe, legal one that people would like to live in. And then when I'm done, I can refinance this house, and maybe I renovate the upstairs too, refinance, and essentially get my money back out, or at least most of it.
Yeah.
And so that way, the mortgage is larger, but there's increased cash flow to take care of that. So let's say you were break even before, right, when it was just a single unit. Now you got 2 units, maybe you're break even again, or you're a little bit, you have some cash flow. But the difference is you've got a higher cash flowing unit and one that's worth, or property, one that's worth more money overall, because you increased that value, and you were able to get that money back out on the refi. So it's like essentially no money out of your pocket, right? There's maybe financing costs for however, the 6 months or a year that it took you to do that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a common model, right? That a lot of investors get.
The other thing, I guess, is flexibility. So what you're kind of describing there is an exit strategy as an investor, or, like what kind of options do you have to get your money out of this deal? Like, can you refinance and pull it out? Can you sell? Can you, and I look at it kind of as a, from the perspective of a young person or somebody buying a house that's thinking maybe in 10 years their kids would want to move in. You're creating a little bit of a, optionality for yourself, right? I got this unit, I got this unit, I got that unit. I could rent that, I could live in there, I could do this, right? And an ADU is just one extra layer of flexibility, right? It's a detached structure, so you're not dealing with the other tenants in the house. So you have your own space, you have your own utility payments. It's one more layer of optionality. And then for like a homeowner or something like that, it's additional flexibility. You can have your parents live in there, or like aging parents, right? That sort of thing. Or, boomerang children. Are they even boomerang children these days? It's like boomerang didn't go very far. Broken boomerang children.
Like a short leash.
The
dog runs to the end and goes, ah.
I made it to the backyard.
So with ADUs, we're seeing, or I think what you're saying is, you may not get, if you follow this kind of renovate and refi, you may not get all that money back out right away, because it's just not very common right yet. Although, like, lots of people are taking an interest in it, and lots of people are starting to do it. I
think about this, like the financing options, right? So conventional, you just buy a single family house and you get a mortgage, and that's really just the way the system's set up. There's financing options. They know how to appraise your house. They give you a thing, and then they assume that you're going to live there and pay the mortgage off, right? So that's how they issue financing. And you start adding a layer of complexity. You say, look, I got a basement apartment. Okay, well, that equals this rent plus that. And so, okay, here's a bigger mortgage. Now you add this on. It's like, well, I actually have another dwelling unit detached, but it's, not the same house. It's new, it's like whatever, and it generates this. And, how much would you lend me for the whole thing? It's like, okay, well, now we're getting to probably a layer of complexity where, it's got to be figured out, right? By all the different professional parties.
Well, and they did it with duplexes.
They did a good job, I think.
And I think they'll get there with, because now, again, Hamilton, you could do 4 units, right? You have 4 units in a house, or you could have 3 units in a house plus the ADU.
We talked about this with Bitcoin adoption. Like, when something's early on, it's volatile. There's a lot of unpredictability, but as things mature, right, I think it'll stabilize and find out where it is, and people will be able to kind of make better predictions on, if I were to invest and do this, this is what my return would be. And usually by then it's too late and you got to go to the next thing.
Well, that is a good point, right? Because early adopters generally benefit more.
It's take more risk because you don't really know. But if you listen to Two Stewards show, man, you're an early adopter.
You're something. Well, no, because it may be hard for you to maybe get that money back out right away. So you could wait. But again, if you wait, your construction costs are going to go up, right? As we know, everything's getting more expensive. Trades are getting more expensive, material. So you could wait 5 years, and maybe you'll have better financing and better cash out refi options. But it's going to be less money.
So just to describe the project we worked on. So we bought a lot in Hamilton. It was a couple years ago. And our intention was to duplex the house, right? So it was an old bungalow, needed a ton of work. It was disgusting inside. So we
Nice.
did not feel bad demoing the house and building stuff. And so anyways, we started down this road to actually convert the home. And this is a time when property values rose quite quickly. And we're like, you know what? Okay. We started gutting the house. We found out, some structural issues that were like, okay, we're going to have to kind of tweak our drawings and some of the engineering we had. Property values are going up. Does it make more sense to pivot this a little bit and build something bigger? So we decided to change our approach and do a 2-story build on top of the existing foundation. So that took a while to kind of make the pivot and build. And then phase 2 of the project was to construct a detached ADU. So while we were building the existing house, we kind of had in mind, hey, by the way, we're going to be building this. Let's run utilities. Let's kind of prep the site, make sure it's accessible, and make sure it's going to be easy. And it so happened that we finished the house first, right? And we had to get tenants. So we had tenants living in the house. Just kind of inform them, hey, you can use the backyard, but eventually we're going to be building something back there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the path that this project took. And then once we got our permits, we started building, and now the thing is complete, and we're looking for tenants. But now it's going to be 3 tenants cohabiting on this lot, right?
Yeah.
Sharing space. So a lot of thought went into the design around how can each of the dwelling units be appealing to the tenant profile we're looking for, and generate good amount of income, to justify all the money we're spending on this project and create nice housing units, and then be a good long-term investment. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a high level of where we went with this.
Yeah. I want to get into the specifics of this ADU, but just moving back a little bit, if you're looking for a property now, whether you're, this is going to be your primary or you're an investor, this is like another criteria to add to that list, right? Can I fit an ADU on the property?
Yeah.
And I think that it's probably critical.
Yeah, because if you're shopping for a house that you want to, live in or rent out, and you're in the market competing against somebody who's a little bit savvy and they know they can build an ADU, they'll be willing to pay more for the property.
Yeah.
Right? Because they see the value there that's untapped. And so you might be losing out on offers going like, why did I lose that by 50 grand? And, the other guys go like, I paid more, but now I have this property that I can build, a massive ADU on and generate income. And, the government on all levels is kind of incentivizing this because they need housing. So, you're kind of contributing to the solution in a way. And then the other people are scratching their heads going like, how are these things selling for so much?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's what's puzzling a lot of people in the marketplace is, how do you value this extra land, right? But if you don't see it, then you don't know. I guess some of the criteria to look for is enough space, right? Like the footprint, enough parking, and then access. Like, can you get to the backyard? Can you get to where the ADU would be constructed? So depending on the municipality you're in, there might be some slightly different ideas. But in Hamilton, there's a setback requirement from the main house, right? Yep. 25 feet. What is that? 7.5 meters, something like that. I don't know. Yep. I'm not a metric guy, But that's you don't want to have this thing right up beside your house for fire reasons, but also for practical purposes. It's nice to have a bit of space. A setback from the side and rear lot lines. There's access requirements. You need a 1 meter pathway for accessing the unit, but also for emergency personnel and just in case. Then there's height restrictions and like size requirements, right? So if you're looking at a lot and you think you can do it, but it's pretty tight, then maybe you do the math on the footprint of the ADU you could build, and you decide, well, this is going to be like, it's not even a 1-bedroom, it's going to be a studio. Is it even worth the construction cost of building a new like dwelling unit, for the rent I'm going to get for a tiny little thing? That's where you start getting into a pro forma and doing the math on construction cost and rents and see as an investment, does this make sense? Like, there's other places you could put your money to generate housing units and generate revenue from them faster and cheaper, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so you can't just go out willy-nilly and be like, it's got a good sized lot, I'll just buy this, and then realize later, like, it's actually not suitable.
But you can be a lot more willy-nilly now than you could like 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
Well, yeah, because they open it up, right? We talked about it.
Okay, right.
So there is a lot more potential than there was, right? So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No, but it's good to know, right? For people who are shopping, like, kind of keep that in the back of your head, right? This mean, a big lot is now that means a lot more than it did. It's not just like extra room for the dog or the kids.
Yeah. And we saw this like, ourselves like a few years ago already. We tried to actively buy the land, right? Like you want to buy a house that works, yes, but I want to buy a house that works on a nice piece of land because I know this is coming down the road. So I think now people need to start thinking about the future even more. Like, okay, well, what's the next step beyond this? Like, is there further density? What kind of properties might be suitable? And I think at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to the size of the land, right? Like, but yeah, it's a trade-off. You start paying more for land or like bigger buildings, bigger lots, and the numbers don't work, right? So you got to have a future mindset and, be willing to sacrifice now for that. And I think you'll be rewarded over time as more intensification happens. But
because even if you're not planning on doing building yourself and you're like, maybe you've got a 10-year plan and you're going to be in this property for 5 to 10 years or something. It still has value to get that.
Somebody will buy it.
Yeah, someone's going to buy it, and they're going to pay more for it in the future. And it's probably going to be more valuable per square foot.
It's probably going to be Mark that buys
it. Maybe. Maybe not.
Depends what Bitcoin goes to. Oh, man.
Okay, so this ADU that you built, let's get into some specifics. What I mean, the biggest question, right, is always like, well, how much did it cost?
Yeah.
So, Brent,
too much.
How much did it cost?
Yeah. Well, a bit of a shout out to the guys who worked on this project. Like, I probably can't name everybody, but Trueline, Ed Heckert, these guys, bunch of like all the trades and everybody. Like, I didn't build it, so these guys actually built it. But
it's as if you built it.
Yeah, we do kind of the front end design and project management stuff like that. But the cost. So our cost is around $300,000 for the construction and the design. So like design, permits, build, and then we also spent more on landscaping, and there was quite a bit of drainage work. So a significant amount of under the ground pipes that need to be installed because there's issues on the site. And that was kind of not related to the ADU, so I haven't really factored that in, but
it's a site specific.
It's site specific, yeah. Like not everyone's going to have to do that. So we had a bit of cost there, and we opted to really improve the landscaping because we're trying to seek a tenant that's going to want to enjoy the space, the way we design it, and value that as well, right? Having a nice outdoor space. So it's really easy to kind of build the structure and walk away and then rent it out and see what happens. But I don't know. I think there's value in setting it up well. Putting a spot for garbage, a spot for seating, a spot for your barbecue, and just kind of so the tenants can come in and envision themselves, actually wanting to be here and, feel like they're valued. And then, the mutual relationship moving forward as a landlord is always better. And we've had great response from that side of things. So
I mean, you start out with sort of extending respect to your potential tenants, and then you get that respect back in return, ideally. Because if you don't, right? Like I don't know, I've done it, right? You rent out a lousy property that's not in good shape. Like, who are you going to attract? You're not going to attract, and even if it's a good tenant, they're not going to be incentivized to really take care of the property or maybe even have a good relationship, because it's just like, you don't care, and therefore I don't care. So you start, you're kind of extending that olive branch at first, right? Yeah. So, okay, so this ADU, this is slab on grade, right?
Yeah.
Brand new construction. It's not an existing thing that you renovated. It's like,
Oh man, if we
brand new
renovated
from
the existing
scratch.
thing that was there, oh boy. There was like a tiny little garden shed and I don't know, a lot of trees and stuff. So yeah, we cleared out the backyard and got rid of a lot of the mess that was there. It was just disgusting and overgrown. And this is, completely new building.
Yeah.
We could have put a basement, right? So we could have done a full foundation, had a full height basement. The city would have permitted that, but that was kind of a cost benefit analysis we did, right? Say, okay,
Yeah.
well, if we have a footprint of 650 square feet, is it justified to add a basement, with the cost that it's going to take to put that in, and they added cost to heat it and cool it and insulate it and all this stuff. Does it make sense for the type of tenant that wants to live here and the rent that? So we kind of opted for, let's do a simple, more affordable slab on grade, still really nice. Long lasting, right? It's engineered, it's insulated, it's reinforced. It's, people I think outside of the building world are like, really, you just pour concrete on the ground and build a house? But yeah, I guess there's a little bit more to it than that, right? Like there's proper engineering goes into making sure this thing's not going to move around.
I don't know, probably 20, 30 years ago, you wouldn't have done that, right?
Well, they do it in other countries where there's no frost all the time.
Well, yeah,
right?
but I mean here where there is frost, you had to do a basement or footings of some kind,
yeah,
right?
you have to get down below the frost so the frost doesn't heat the foundation and crack everything. And your utility connections get all messed up as your sewer pipes crack off. And
that's no fun.
So far, no issues there. But
no, there's been some advances in this area, which is pretty cool. Okay, to do a basement.
Yeah.
How much would that have cost roughly?
I'm guessing like 80 grand.
Okay.
I don't know. So there's the excavation part of it and the actual material like concrete and installation cost, labor to do that. But then there's also once you have the basement, like you can just have a basement that's like concrete and wrap some insulation around it. But you have to heat that. You have to cool it. You should insulate it properly. And then you got this basement. You should probably finish it. So now you need stairs to get down there, right? So you pay for stairs, and you take up some of the square footage in your house to accommodate the stairs. And then you need rooms. Like, what are you going to do? Do you want plumbing down there? Like, then you have to make sure your slope is good to the house. Like, it's just another, like, it is worth it in some cases if you envision having a larger ADU with access for a family to live in there or something like that. It might, like, let's say it's your parents or your kids or your family members living in the ADU and, they're going to have a kid and they want to have space. Then it might be fully justified to make a lot of sense, right? You spend an extra 80 grand and you got a massive, bunch of bedrooms or whatever for your, but the intention is kind of that these buildings are going to be accessory to the house, right? So the zoning and the codes that are in place are basically like, this thing is not going to be bigger than the house, the main primary dwelling on the lot, right? It's supposed to be kind of like this smaller unit in the back. So we kind of took that to heart too. Like the cost of it didn't make sense, and the footprint that we're dealing with, 650 square feet. You start putting stairs in there, and I just wasn't super enthused about it. We also could have gone up. Like we could have done, story and a half design with some bedrooms or whatever, a bedroom up top. We didn't want to impede the neighbors and the other house as well, right? Because kind of as a package, you think, I could build the best ADU, and then I'll have the best ADU that makes everyone else around really pissed off, and like our property is no longer worth as much, right? Like it just, I don't know.
Yeah, like I just saw one like that.
Yeah.
It's like right next to the neighbor's house. And
it's some people just
like
think just about the
them.
ADU project at hand. It's like, well, no, this is built in the context of a neighborhood, and you're trying to do your best to improve things in the world, not make them maximize the ADU itself. Like,
some people. Some people.
So that's my mindset.
Is there a rule of thumb for how big the ADU can be compared to the existing house?
Oh yeah, I gotta get.
I mean that varies by municipality,
70% of the gross floor area of the house in Hamilton, or 800 square feet, 807 square feet, something like that. But if your house is much larger, then I think you can go a little bit higher. You can exceed this as well if you apply for a variance, right? So if you want to build as of right and you don't want a variance, right? Where a variance, remember, is just like a public procedure where the neighbors can get involved. Everyone can kind of have their say.
Yeah.
If it's minor in nature, it's probably likely to be improved. But if you're like, I want to double the size of this ADU and like it's just going to be a mansion, then yeah, you're probably not going to get that through, right?
Yeah.
But if you're trying to go another 25, 50 square feet or something like that, and the space you have is like warrants that, I don't know. I would assume that would be pretty minor and be approved, right? Yeah, that's something to think about.
Okay, but yeah, you're saying roughly 70% of the, is it of the footprint?
Yeah, the gross floor area. So like if it's above grade floor area.
So would that include first and second stories?
Yeah.
Okay, so it could still be a sizable.
It can be a sizable thing, right? But they kind of cap it to 800 square feet if your house is less than 1,000. Don't quote me on that. I got to get the actual policy out, but.
Okay, but it's got to be smaller anyways.
Yeah.
So, okay.
The spirit of it is that it's like accessory or smaller, secondary to the larger one, right?
Yeah.
I'm learning all this legal language.
Get your law degree soon. Okay, so prep for the ADU, I think we kind of talked about that. You had the ADU in mind when you bought the property.
We're not preppers, Mark. We just filled it up with canned food.
Yeah, well, then you would have to go underground.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we dug a basement. Storms. I just didn't tell you about it. It's all full of, weapons,
rations, ammunition.
Yeah. Bitcoin.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we look at some pictures of this place? Can we do that?
Yeah, we can do that. So
I mean, if you're listening, this is not going to be very helpful for you. Maybe we should have the descriptive video.
Yeah, Gideon, where are you with the descriptive words? Pull up ChatGPT. Do synonyms for gorgeous and magnificent.
Cinnamon.
Synonyms.
Okay, so we're sharing. All right, you're making people dizzy now.
Okay, so this is the exterior of the building. So 625 square feet of living space, I guess, a 650 square foot footprint, something like that. We has to have a little rectangle box with, a cutout in for a little covered front porch.
Yep.
And then the tenant has, their outdoor landscape space, like a walkway to the unit. And then there's a little shed, and then there's a walkway behind with the patio seating, kind of private, set apart from the main house. And the neighbors, they have their own space, and they have a patio door to access that from the rear of the ADU. So they can have a barbecue out there, have a little nice place to sit, and then and
I mean, it's like the walkway, even the walkway, right? It's pavers. It's nice.
Yeah, it's high quality stuff.
Yeah.
I want to live there. Inside, we kind of spent quite a bit of time and attention and money on the kitchen itself, because it's kind of a feature, right?
Yep.
So it is a bit of a bigger kitchen, I think. Like, it has a fridge off to the side, built-in cabinets, and then you have a dishwasher, sink, and like a double sink, and a full-size stove with a range. Like, you kind of have all the features you would in a normal size house. But the island is the seating space, right, for dining, and probably if you're going to have like work from home, there's not a ton of space in the unit to like have a desk or whatever extra furniture. So we kind of made the island, it's got obviously it has a plug in it, but it has some bookshelving on the side, and just becomes more of a space where it's multifunctional, right? And that's when you get into dense spaces, like when we talk about intensification of housing, like you're taking what's existing and you're making it serve more functions than what it did before, right? So if you're intensifying a house into multiple units, like you have to literally change the use of every single room into like twice as many uses, right? For it to accommodate 2 dwelling units.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a change in thinking in terms of design. And like, this is kind of common more in condo buildings, right? Where you have really compact spaces. People are kind of used to that.
Yeah.
But in a detached structure, I think it's more, they might have a different expectation. Like, where's my extra room for this? Storage and whatever else, right? In this house. So,
yeah, I mean, looks like there's a ton of storage, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of blank walls, at least in this area.
No, there's it's a lot of glass and a lot of storage. The wall, when you come in the front door, so you have like a front hall entry closet, you have kind of like extra longer term storage. You have pantry, you have a fridge like built in. So that whole wall is just taken up with storage, and that's a big thing that tenants look for when they come. well, where am I going to put my whatever, right? And
My mucklucks.
yeah, my bike. And I'm like, well, your bike can't fit in the closet, so you're probably going to have to sell it.
Unless it's one of those fold-up bikes.
Yeah, that fits, yeah. So yeah, it doesn't appeal to every tenant, but to a specific kind of person with a minimal lifestyle, I think it does well. And then this unit has vaulted ceilings, so that's kind of a design consideration, right? You could do trusses.
Yep.
You could do kind of a vaulted ceiling truss where you get a bit of that effect, or you could do full vaulted ceiling, and that's what we opted for. So there's a little bit of structural considerations there to have loads coming down in certain areas, and
Yeah.
but that vaulted ceiling adds a lot of space, right? So you feel like it's a much larger unit. And I've seen some great garage conversions and different things like that where they open up so you get a vaulted ceiling. It's a little bit extra work, but I think it's well worth it in terms of
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
appeal for people, right?
Yeah, because it doesn't feel like a basement apartment.
No, this is all on grade. It's all like, you feel like you're in your nice little private luxury suite kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and looking at the living room, like you have a ton of windows in there.
Yeah, and we were really conscious at designing it, like the sight lines of the tenant. So what am I looking at when I'm sitting on the couch? Where should I put these windows to kind of optimize that? And we the advantage of this lot, like, you have a view of the escarpment, you have trees surrounding in different areas, right? So we try to key in on that and put windows in front of, nice things to look at.
Right.
So that when
Not
I'm doing
the garbage cans.
Yeah. It's like, well, I'm here and I'm just looking at this guy's parked car and the garbage. So I think there's value to that in terms of the lifestyle that, somebody wants to live, and just, it's nice, calm, relaxing.
Serene.
Yeah, they could listen to the Two Stewards show, on repeat, just kind of get Mark's soothing voice.
Yeah, well, to help them get to sleep for sure.
Yeah. But the unit's heated. We can get into this a little bit more detail, but it has a electric fireplace in here, but it's kind of a supplemental heat source. So it has like a mini split system that does the heating and the cooling. And there's like an electric baseboard heater in the bathroom, and then the fireplace is kind of extra supplemental heat to kind of, it's a nice accent for the living room, but it's also like a heat source in case, right? Bedroom, again, more storage. Everybody who sees these pictures is like, oh, there's a ladder. Where does that go? It's like, I have to climb up there to go to bed. It's like, well, you could climb up there to go to bed if you want to, but no, there's a loft. So there's an insulated space above the bedroom, because in a bedroom, you don't really need a vaulted ceiling, and it's just excessive, right? So in the bedroom and the bathroom, we decided, let's put a floor, put all of our utilities up there, right?
Yeah.
So our water heater and our HRV and everything goes up above, and we have some extra storage. So for storage and long-term stuff, like, they're going to have a lot of space in this unit.
Yeah.
Outdoor storage is kind of limited, but this great way of addressing that. And then the bathroom, we put in a shower instead of a tub, kind of appealing to, someone without kids. Like,
Well, this is a one-bedroom place, right?
One bedroom. It's going to be really, really basically a single or a couple living here.
And the tile job on that shower, let me tell you,
Woo!
phenomenal.
Are you throwing people under the bus again?
No, I'm taking him out from under the bus. That's Gideon is sitting there listening, and
He's just mangled by the bus.
Yeah,
We're
this
pulling him
time,
out.
I think. Did you do the whole tile thing?
The whole thing.
Yeah, no, he did a nice job. It looks good.
Oh, man.
Good job, Gid. He's not just talented.
Not just a pretty face
Podcast
and bad
producer.
audio on the last episode.
That wasn't his fault.
We're throwing you under the bus for the audio quality, Mr. AV guy.
That was me.
Yeah, so then the bathroom as well has laundry, right? So try to give every kind of feature that they will need. Laundry, I think, is really important. Tenants, oh, it has laundry. Yeah, of course it has laundry. What do you think? But
a lot of places
places don't, right? And then you got to put all your smelly stuff in your car and drive around, and I don't know what you got to do, because I don't really want to do that. I got a laundry at my house.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's kind of the pictures of the unit. So
Okay. And it's like, it's gorgeous. For the, it is not for everybody. It's not for a family of 5, but for a certain demographic, like it's
exactly what you want.
Exactly what they want, and they'd be willing to pay premium for that, I think.
Yeah. So maybe just to talk a little bit about the utilities and servicing. So that's a big variable when you're building these things, right? Like, if you got an existing garage and you're converting it, it probably doesn't have sewer running to it, and maybe it has hydro, but it probably doesn't have water, probably doesn't have, gas. So, and especially if you're building a new building in your yard, right, side yard or backyard, you're going to have to run these services to it. So that's a big consideration. If you've already got a house and the house is, you don't want to disrupt the house. You don't want to start chipping concrete in the basement and whatever. You're going to have to get utilities to it. So there's going to be some disruption, right? Whether you're digging up the front yard and going around or going through or whatever. So as an investor, it's a huge opportunity when you're buying a lot to do conversions and do all this stuff, to plan it all out ahead of time. So I got to get utilities to here eventually. So let's do phase 1. We'll put the utilities here and then we'll whatever, right? You can save money that way and save time.
Well, even if you're not planning on building the ADU
right away or ever.
Well, but you're planning on eventually moving, it's probably well worth it to do that, because the cost of disrupting a finished basement suite.
Yeah. Especially if you have like a concrete driveway and all landscaping and it's nice, then you don't want to start cutting things up and displacing tenants for that. So that's important. And we had the advantage of doing the house first. We kind of ran utilities. And then we ran into something, actually, I should probably mention this, because we stubbed the utilities out the back of the house. It's a little bit of a mistake on our part. I'm going to blame everybody on this because...
let's get the bus is pulling up.
Yeah, the bus is pulling out. I'm pointing fingers and Mark's checking people out there. All right. So, we stubbed out a water line and a sewer line out of the house, phase 1. But plumbing code is you can't have a sewer line, a water line with a junction in the water line within 8 feet of each other, whatever. So if you dig a trench and you have a water line that's supplying fresh water to the dwelling unit, and there's a junction in that water line, and the sewer line's right beside it, well, the assumption is that eventually the sewer line's going to leak or something's going to get into and contaminate the water supply, right?
Because we all know that high pressure water lines are susceptible to stuff getting into them, right?
I don't know.
Repel it. There's a leak.
Have you ever seen a leak in a water line under pressure?
You're not.
We've had that before
putting anything
too,
in there.
Like a 1-inch line with nothing on it, and the water turns on, and just like it shot up in the air, and it hit the ceiling in the cold cellar, and just like made a hole in the drywall. So, anyways. Whether or not it's possible, that's kind of the perspective of the building department. So, you're not allowed to have a junction close. So we had to actually dig this up again after it was all inspected and finalized, and we had to re-landscape. It was just a nightmare, but learning experience for next time, right? So if you're punching utilities out, be mindful of how close they are, or what your junctions look like, and do everything according to code, because you're going to have to do it over again, especially if they're picky, right? So,
or new.
Yeah. So,
okay, gas. I didn't see any gas stuff in this ADU.
So we opted for just electric, running everything off electric. Part of that was the location of the gas meter on the house. We didn't really want to be running lines all over the place. Part of it was we just didn't really see the value of having we were opting for a mini split system to do the heat and cool. So really the only kind of gas appliance would be like the water heater, maybe the stove or the dryer. And we just chose to go electric, keep it simple. Ultimately the utilities are kind of up to the tenants, and they can they'll have their own account. They'll be paying the utilities for this unit on their own meter.
But there's capacity issues, right? Which sometimes leads you to do more gas stuff.
So if you run into that, because the city or Electra or whoever these people are who have great ideas on how much power you should have, how much electricity you should have running to your unit. They kind of cap it, right? I don't say it's 200 amps, but
I think it's 200 in Hamilton.
So if you want to have, so the city on the one hand, over here is like, we need all this housing. Let's put 4 units in every house. And then the hydro supplier is like, you know what? Actually, you can only have 200 amps. So you can plug in your Xbox and that's about it.
A toaster.
Right?
Warm up your Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts and Xbox. Here we go. If you need to cook food or wash your clothes or heat your unit, you got to go somewhere else. Yeah, so if you get into that, you got to put in more gas appliances to offset, to create available supply on the hydro side, right?
But the government also doesn't want you doing anything with gas.
No, so
Natural
getting
gas.
mixed messages, Mark. And
Yeah.
we got to talk about this on another
I'm so
episode.
confused.
Yeah, we're going around in circles here. You want us to build electric charging stations for your electric cars that are subsidized and all this stuff. And then you want us to build more housing units, but you don't want us to use gas, but we can't get electricity, so you have to use gas. It's just...
You do a gas
confused.
turbine to
Yeah.
generate
So I heard this the
electricity
other day. His
to
buddy was
charge your
saying,
car.
there's guys who have a business with a truck running around with diesel generator charging electric cars.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious. That's
Pretty
so
common,
funny.
actually.
Yeah, that's hilarious. You drive like, hi, I'd like to charge my car. A guy pulls up in a diesel truck with a generator, sits there and charges. So yeah, that could be the state phase 2, right? In 10 years, we realized this wasn't the right way to build houses, and everyone has a generator running in their backyard to power their house.
So you should be pouring pads for generators.
Yeah, we should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're
It's not a patio. That's a generator holding spot.
yeah. So we went with electric, as a ductless mini split system, and just for people who maybe haven't installed one of these, don't know, whatever. So you have
Well, you don't want ducts in your house, right? That's where you want the ductless.
ductless,
Yeah.
fully ductless, geeseless,
Quack,
yeah. Markless, yeah.
It's remarkable.
So the condenser unit sits on the outside of the house. It generates heat and cooling. So you have a head in different rooms, right? And it's important, right? Because if you're going to go to apply for a building permit for one of these, the city's going to ask you to come up with an HVAC design,
Right.
right? So that you have to prove to them, like, this is a proper, heating and cooling design for this house. And part of that is ventilation as well.
Yeah.
And a mini split system is ductless, and it doesn't circulate air in and out of the house, right? So just
Yeah.
it doesn't bring in fresh air. It circulates it inside the house. So,
Yeah.
there's another requirement to try and have fresh air come in and exhaust, older air. So you have to add like an HRV unit, ERV, something to exchange air in and out of the house.
Yeah.
But
But that uses much smaller ducting, right?
Yeah.
The HRV. What is
Yeah.
HRV? Heat return ventilator? or
recovery,
something?
heat recovery.
Heat recovery.
Yeah. So what it's doing is bringing in air, fresh air from outside, bringing it up to temperature
Yeah.
with the exhaust air coming out, and then, just switching the two, right? So, and I think it's great to have, like, we have a space that we're in right now that's heated by a ductless thing, but there's no HRV, right? And it kind of sometimes gets stuffy in here, like the air is stagnant. So you get a lot of open
Especially
doors.
after we do a podcast.
Yeah. It's like, woo, gotta open the garage door. But yeah, that's something to consider when you're applying, right? Even on the design stage, like how you're going to do this, how you're going to comply.
Well, yeah, because if you have an existing house,
Yeah.
right, with a couple of units, well, 200 amps, you eat that up pretty quickly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you may have to, even if you don't want gas stuff, you may have to consider, like, I
Yeah.
got to do some gas appliances,
Yeah.
furnace, whatever.
Yeah. And it comes down to preference, right? Like some people will like electric, some people, I don't know, whatever. It's up to you.
Yeah.
Run your cost benefit.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got you've got it built. You're looking for tenants. Your next step is get someone in there, and away you go. So
Start paying our debts. Yeah, I'll admit this is kind of is our first project on this sort of like we've done a lot of conversions, we've done build, we've done that sort of thing, like severance, whatever.
Yep.
But this is kind of our first ADU, so it's been an experience in trying to optimize for intensification of a lot. Learning what feedback we're getting from tenants is a big factor to that. So that's something that our business, like Good Stewards, we focus on. It's the whole picture, right? So if you're an investor, you're going to be taking money that's yours. You're going to be buying a lot or an existing building. You're going to be converting it to try and generate more revenue. But you're also going to be owning it long term, right? And that's the last piece of this puzzle is the tenants are your only customers, the only source of income. And if you're going to be owning this long term, you want them to be happy and you want them to be, satisfied with what they're living in.
Yeah.
So when we're posting this ad and all of our other ads, we're getting feedback in real time from tenants, right? Like potential tenants. So we're dialing in who is our tenant profile that we're seeking in this marketplace, depending on what city we're in, right? What are the sort of features they're looking at? What would they pay more for? What do they absolutely don't want, right? And some people come to see something like this and they're like, whoa, dude, like, why would I live in someone's backyard? That's crazy, right? And that's a sentiment that I think is so new but then there's other people who come from, let's say, Burlington, Toronto, Oakville, like that way, and they come here and they're like, whoa, you have so much space. Like, you get your own building. Like, what? I was used to paying 10 times as much for a condo and now you don't get anything, right? So it kind of, I think it's a perspective that's going to develop over time as more of these are constructed.
Well, it's
and they
like
have
basement apartments, right? People were like, I'm not living in a basement. Are you crazy? But now there's like a lot of nice basement apartments, and it's just like
it's step one. You get married, you move into a basement. So this is step two. You move into an ADU. Well, so the ADUs, the other thing on that is finding tenants is a bit tricky because, there's a bit of a bottleneck on where do you get tenants from, right? And it's advertising. It's like, put it on platforms where there's people looking for rentals. The tricky part is that there's not very many of these out there. So that like the rental platforms don't have a category for ADUs. It's not like, hey, this is an ADU. So people will respond to your ad and assume it is a detached house or assume it's like a basement or like they don't know what it is, right? So unless
even if you put accessory dwelling unit, that means nothing to people.
Yeah. So like people just are online looking at rentals, like I got to find a place to live. And then they're like, whoa, that looks kind of interesting. Click. Yeah. And then they're like, what is this? Right. So it's not like they know that they want to live in an ADU because that would be like the right fit for their lifestyle or whatever. And I'm trying to find an ADU. So I'm going to click ADUs to filter my search. And then there's like 10 available, right? Like they don't do that because that feature's not available. So I think it's a matter of time before, like we talked about with the appraisers and the values and the sales, like as people build these, they're going to sell, we're going to have a marketplace for them. Same thing on the tenant side, right? As people build them, there's going to be, a better defined marketplace for them. Like, they're valuable, I think, but it's premature because you're probably not going to attract the tenant that you want because there's just no way to do that right now. But in 10 years, I think like, let's say Facebook Marketplace will have an ADU button.
Yeah, and like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have the same square footage, like in a basement,
as a tenant,
or maybe a little bit more? Yeah, as a tenant, right?
Yeah.
Or even in a triplex or a duplex, right? Or your own space. So, like, I think you're right. Like, people don't know about them.
I know what I would rather have, but yeah.
I think most people would want their own space, even if it's not.
So some of the advantages are like if you live in a detached structure, you have your own building, but it's a separate entrance. You don't have any transfer of noise.
Yeah, that's huge.
Unless they're like really loud or smells, right? Because if you have a shared accommodation, a lot of times the HVAC systems interchange like air between units. So not only are you getting the noise, but you're getting the smell. And you still have to function with other people on the lot. Like where do you park? Where do you put the garbage? Got my dog out for a bit and whatever, right? But if you design it really well to have an individual space for everybody and like a good flow for the whole project, I think, I think there's a real good appeal for tenants to live in these things.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to live in it, but my kids.
Hey, you put them in the loft.
Put them in the loft, 1-year-old. Swoop, out there, nice.
Oh, you could add a slide.
Yeah.
My kids would love it.
Yeah.
Okay, any other final words of wisdom on ADUs, Brent?
I don't know. You don't have any more questions for me. Okay, that's good. Well,
well, we're going on an hour, so I have lots of questions, but...
Okay, well, we'll save them for the tour. So we're going to launch...
The tour?
Yeah, we're going to launch a tour. Details are forthcoming on this.
Yes.
But we're going to try and see 1 or 2 ADUs that have been recently built, this one included, and give people an opportunity. If you've been listening, you want to check it out in person, kind of meet us and go through some of these numbers and some of the finishes and actually see it in person.
Yeah.
Now's your opportunity. And, like I said, we're looking for tenants. So this is not going to be trying to find tenants, but because it's vacant right now, it's a good opportunity to go through
Ideal time.
and see it. So yeah, that's coming up.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
We gotta
We'll
decide
have a
on it.
link.
Yeah, we'll have a link going on.
And stuff. So cool. Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much for being on the Two Stewards Show, Brent.
Oh, anytime, Mark.
It was my pleasure. So hopefully people got something out of that, especially, I mean, if, it doesn't appeal to everybody, but if you're in this particular space and you're buying a place or you're thinking about, how to increase cash flow, this is a perfect way to do that in our area anyway. So thank you for listening, folks. And until next time,
steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
And if you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We'll see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.